Okay, so the setup for the counter with locking doors is what we're going to go over today. And what I wanted to start with is the hard case. So all of this is going to pack down inside of this hard case. It's rotomolded plastic, so it's very strong. It also has some straps around it as well to keep it all snug and in place. But this is a shipping case, so you can ship this counter standard UPS or FedEx ground or expedite, but that would be pretty costly. The hard case has wheels on it with a handle, so you can kind of see this side. It's got a sturdy handle and on wheels so that it can be pushed around. But all of this is designed to pack down inside of here. If you have a 2 foot wide or a 4 foot wide, it can all pack down inside of just one of these hard cases. If you have a 6 foot wide or an 8 foot wide, then it packs down and fits into 2 hard cases. Okay, so before setting it up, what I like to do is I like to take all the components out of the hard case and lay everything out. This is helpful, it keeps things organized, and it gives kind of a visual understanding of the counter, especially for the first time that you're putting it together. These are put together completely without any power tools needed. As a matter of fact, the only tool that is used is just a little Allen. If you wanted, you could get like a little ratchet that's the same size, maybe make things go a little bit faster, but I find this to be sufficient in most cases. The other thing too is I'll be putting it together without gloves, but if you have gloves, that's helpful. It will keep your hands clean. It will also help protect if there was any sharp edge. These are usually all polished for the edges so that it's not too sharp. But having gloves on will have an extra layer of protection. Okay, so now as we get started, there's three things I'd like to point out which will make it easier to understand how to put together. And the first one is, because these have locking doors in them, they will actually slide into this groove. So there's a channel on this piece of extrusion, as you will see on all the pieces here. And you will see this illustrated later, but the door actually fits down into this groove. If you look at the other side, there's no groove or channel, it's just smooth. So keep that in mind when you're putting it together, that the door is going to slide down in here. And I will bring that to your attention later as well, but something to keep in mind. The other thing too is when you have different locations for the mounts, we have mid shelves that will go down in there. Now, if you look at these pieces right here, which are going to be verticals, you can see as I have them laid out, these are all the same location or position. When I go like this, they're all the same. However, if I flip it over, this one ends up higher. So you're gonna wanna keep that in mind as you put it together. Make sure these are all consistent heights, because otherwise when you put the mid shelf on, it's gonna be down on one side or up on the other side. So you want them to all be the same level, in which case we would go like this. And now those mid shelves are gonna fit at the same position. Same is true for these corner pieces as well right here. So if I were to flip this one over, see how they're different. This one is shorter, this one is longer. If I flip it back over, they're now all the same. So you're gonna wanna match those with these so that they end up being the same height on them. In this case, I'm gonna flip it around. Now it's the same height. So they're gonna rest in the right spot. Lastly, the graphic is held on by Velcro. So we have Velcro that goes around the perimeter, and there's the other side of Velcro on the graphic. And so you're gonna wanna position these on the outside at the very bottom, along the very bottom and the very top, because that's what the graphic is gonna be held on with. Okay, so those are just 3 things I like to point out. And let's get started putting it together. Okay, you can see as we get going here, the counter is starting to take shape. And just a couple things I wanted to point out is, like we talked about before, the frame has the groove in the channel here in the extrusion. And this is a good opportunity to kind of show you how this works, even though I will circle back on it. but you want to have the channel facing like this, and the doors just slide right down inside. This is the inside of the door. But that's why it's important on the very bottom here, instead of having it face this way, it needs to face this way so that the door can drop down into it. Okay, so that's one. Now we're not quite ready for the doors yet, so I'm just gonna back this out. Right there for now. The other items I want to mention too, as we get started, we did talk about these being all the same level. So you can see on this side and over here, these are all the same level. So those mid shelves are gonna sit nice and flat on there. Okay, the other thing as we get going here too, if I just flip this around, there are cam locks on the very top. They're not on the bottom, but they are on the top corners. And these have another little tool that will tighten these, and that's what attaches the countertop to the very top. So just want to point that out at this step so that you know that these go on top, not down at the bottom. And so we will get to that. Also, these will face the same direction. You can see here, if we drew a line across, these are facing the same direction for each. Okay, and then lastly, if you see some bite marks on the extrusion, on the metal, or you see what looks like little markings on them, that is because these are custom manufactured per order. So these are custom and unique and not produced until we have an order for one of these. So it is custom produced, and you will see some of the saw marks on them sometimes during the manufacturing process. Okay, so this is starting to come to life now, and just want to point out, just because it's helpful to know that the depth of the counter, so you have the width of the counter, this being 6 feet wide, but the depth of the counter, these pieces are actually shorter than these pieces are. There's obviously more of these pieces than there are of these, but that's another reason why I like to lay everything out. I pulled up two right here because you can actually see that these are shorter than these. These are for the depth of the counter on the insides here, and these are going to be for the entire fronts, top and bottoms, and backs, top and bottoms. It's important to note that, and I like to keep them separate. The other thing too is that the Velcro, you will notice, is across the very top of the sides and the front only. It does not have to be on the back, and that's because the graphic is just going to start at the back side corner here, and it's going to wrap all the way around. It's a one-piece graphic, and it goes all the way over here to this side. Okay, so that is the Velcro all the way along the top, all the way along the bottom, and same with the sides, and then down vertically on the corners over here. So that's how you'll know. And then now that we get to the doors, this is where you can see this is the front of the counter, this is the back of the counter. And so we have the back side of the door, front side of the door. And these just simply drop right in place, right down that channel in the frame. And just slowly let it down. They'll just glide right down into place. And then right into that channel at the bottom we talked about. Make sure you grab the right size. But now we have it in place. Now the bar can go over again with the channel showing here, because this piece is going to glide inside it up there. And just put that on, grab our tool. Lock in so. And now we just tighten it up. Like that. Okay, we have most of the frame assembled now, and the counters with locking doors usually come standard with a mid shelf. The colors may be different depending on the finish selection that you go with. But in this case, it is a gray finish. And this is the mid shelf. It just drops down inside. You use the length of the piece for the depth, and they connect right here to the inside. So these pieces will already be on there, and then you just attach it the same way with the cam lock, just tighten that. And then on the corners, you have the pegs here, and these are already pre-installed. And so at that point, you just take the mid shelf and it just rests right on top like that. And it shares this same extrusion piece with the next shelf, and so on and so forth. Worth mentioning that these counters with locking doors have the hard panel doors in the back, and it has the fabric graphic for the sides and the front. If at your shows and your application requires additional security, you can have these hard panels as well as inserts for the sides and the fronts. They're just additional panels, and they drop down into the fronts just like these. They end up not being visible, however, because the fabric graphic, after those panels are dropped in the fronts and the sides, the fabric graphic goes right over the top with it as well. But then that way, if somebody just peels back the fabric graphic, they don't have access to the inside. You would have the hard panels in there that are locked in place with the rest of the frame system. So we have the mid shelves in now, following the same steps as the last section. Now we're moving on to the countertop. Now again, this finish is a gray top. You have different options like black countertops. But however, these go together. If we flip one over, it is in two sections. The reason it's in two sections is because it has to be able to be small enough to fit into the hard case. If it were a full size, it would be too wide and it wouldn't be able to ship standard. What we do is we connect the two sides together. And what is done is we have the plate here, and it has holes in it. And then we just have the little thumb screws here that just screw right on. So this is pretty easy, but I usually get the first side going. I flip it over. And these sides right here are gonna take the cam lock in the corners. But these with holes in it, just go like that. And you get all these going, and they just all screw right in. I keep it a little bit loose, so you don't have to tighten them all the way down, because this does have to connect to the other one too. And if it's a little bit loose, then you can connect it to the other side. Once the other side is in there, then now you can tighten them all up. So now I flip it over, and you go. We're not attaching it to the frame just yet. We're just connecting it to the other side of the countertop. And now from underneath, you have access to it. Just like that. Once all of these are in place, the two are together, nice and snug, now you can go in and tighten the rest of them. Once that's done, if we just slide this for a second, you can see right here is the cam lock on top. And underneath, as I pointed out, is the receptacle for that cam lock. So once these two are together, you just slide the whole thing over, right about there. Grab the other little tool, and we will tighten it. That will lock the countertop to the rest of the frame. Okay, so we've reached almost the final step before we put the graphic on. One thing that we've done as we got started with the little thumb screws here underneath, and then we went to the corners and we used our little tool and we locked each corner in place using the little cam locks. And once we get all four locked in place, then we're coming up on the inside here where you got it started, and now you can just screw the rest of these in where it's nice and snug for each of these. It kind of pulls everything together locks everything in place, the two pieces, and attaching it to the frame. At that point, we have our graphic, and I will show you how that goes, but it attaches onto the frame, starting in the back here on the sides, and then it's just gonna wrap along the front to the other side using the Velcro. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here we go. Here's the completed counter setup with the fabric on there, held on by graphic, which makes for an easy application. You can see from the back side, we have all the doors installed. And if you take a look, it comes with a key as well, for one key for all of them. And you can see the inside with the mid shelf, countertops, everything is ready to go. Thanks for watching.